Good morning, Marianas. Sad news throughout the globe and on the local front as well. And exciting news in the world of politics. I'm Troy Torres.
And I'm Johnny Rosario.
It is 6:37 a.m. this Friday, the 9th of September, 2022. And I first have to ask that you pardon me, and I'm not trying to appear unprofessional for you. I'm wearing my Blue Star shirt that I got from Bob Klitsky. I'm a member of the Blue Star Club, very limited club. That
only
Bob
three of you.
There's only three of us, including Helen Middlebrook and Lee Weber, who are part of Bob Klitsky's Blue Star Club. And so I'm wearing this shirt to thank him for that, for having me be a part of that. Anyway, I just had to explain myself as to why I'm not wearing the shirt or the tie, or
It'll be fine.
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I always appreciate you,
Yeah,
Chelu.
thanks.
When we come back, we'll bring you our top headlines to include the death of Queen Elizabeth II, the death of Sister Eucarita Cruz, and a whole lot of politics that went on last night. Plus, during the second half of this show, we're going to bring you a big announcement from attorney Peter Santos, who will join us in studio when we come back from these commercial messages.
I feel that this environment is for anybody that wants to try something new, whether it is CrossFit or powerlifting. We offer a safe space for someone who's never been athletically inclined to try something that they've never done before.
Welcome back. The world is mourning the end of the second Elizabethan age following the news that Queen Elizabeth II has died. The oldest head of state throughout the globe and the longest reigning monarch in British history following a 70-year reign died peacefully at Balmoral Castle in Scotland, according to Buckingham Palace. Her eldest child immediately became and assumed the name King Charles III. Prime Minister Liz Truss, whom the late Queen met just the day before to ask that Truss form a government in her name, addressed her country, ending her statement by saying, quote, "We usher in a new era in the magnificent history of our great country, exactly as Her Majesty would have wished, by saying the words, 'God save the King,'" end quote. Back home, Guam woke up to the sad news that a gem of the Catholic community, Sister Eucarita Cruz, had died. The longtime member of the School Sisters of Notre Dame had been retired and receiving treatment at an SSND home in Wisconsin. We at Kandit send our condolences to her family and to the entire Notre Dame community, of which I am a proud member from the Notre Dame High School class of 1998.
There is clarity for the thousands of supporters Congressman Michael Saniklis and Sabrina Salas Matanani as the former Democratic gubernatorial team in no uncertain terms all but asked their supporters to vote for Felix Camacho and Tony Ada in the general election. At an event they held for supporters last night, Ms. Matanani said it's time to unite for change.
Who took on being possible, who put our heart on the line, walked away from a 25-year career to try and do good for the people of Guam. And we would not have been able to embark on this journey without her. So without further ado, my friends and family, Sabrina Salas Matanani.
I'm really humbled by all of the hard work that everybody put into our campaign. And I have to admit there were days when I would wake up wondering what kind of punches are going to be thrown at us, wondering what kind of dirt is going to be swung our way. And I almost quit. I almost gave up. But because all of you were in our corner, it gave me the strength and the courage to continue fighting, to continue to stand strong. I should write a book about what I went through these last several months. Because there's a lot to say, and really I can't say it all tonight. But what I will say is that we all fought bravely, with honor, with respect, and with dignity. If you believe in a better Guam, if you believe in a better future for our children, you have to continue fighting, especially in the November general election. In the primary election, 60% of our registered voters decided to stay home. We can't let that happen again. That's right. So please tell your friends, tell your family to vote in November, to unite for change. For me, it's never been about a political party. It has always been about you. It has always been about the people, and it will always be about the people. So don't give up. Remember, the bigger goal is to vote for change. Thank you again for being here. I love all of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And love you, Bree. We love you, Bree.
Sabrina Salas Matanani. You know, when the election concluded, I really didn't know what to think of it. And I'll be very honest with you, today I still wake up and rethink everything and try to understand. But all of this for me always began as a journey of faith and service and answering a call for our people, a call to make things better on our island. It started 10 years ago for me. This lady who's just so awesome has been doing this for 3 months, and just look at her. Yeah, just look at her. So first and foremost, I want to thank Sabrina again. There's one really great thing that's going to come out of this very difficult campaign. It's the birth of a star for the people. Yeah. I know I'm putting a lot of pressure on her, but man, I've seen her heart, you've all seen it too, and that's a heart for one. I know how that heart feels. That heart beats in here. It beats in here to this very day. It's beaten in here for the last 10 years. When we first ran for Senate because the island was borrowing too much money to make up for misspending. It beat in here when we fought against pay raises for elected officials. Some of those same elected officials are top bidders now. It amazes me. But it beat in my heart then when we fought that good fight as hard as it was. It beat in my heart when I knew that there was more work to be done for Guam federally, and we took on a giant in Madden Cordelio. And all of you back then, every single time, you guys made the service possible. And we served unconditionally, put it all out there. Democrat or Republican, we spoke truth to power always. We did it for all of you. And because this whole journey for me was partly spiritual, a lot of people don't really know that about me, but I'm actually a really spiritual person. I've reflected.
Mr. St. Nicholas, whose speech continues in the upcoming clip, revealed intimidation tactics and other dirty politicking used by his former opponents, the campaign of Lulian Guerrero and Joshua Tenorio, in a fiery speech where he said the Lou and Josh campaign had poisoned our community with dirty politics. He said he would never concede to those politics and echoed his former running mate's call to unite for change.
Because throughout the whole journey, even before I decided to run, I really reflected and I really prayed hard. And I said, Lord, if this is what you want us to do, then I will never refuse your call. And so we said yes to him back in March. It was so difficult in April. They kept attacking every single person that was interested in running until like heroes did out that God was helping us with. And we took it on. We took on all these other challenges. And no matter how hard it got, it always retreated back to a place of faith. And I said, Lord, this is the quest that you're sending us on to keep us going. We couldn't fundraise because they scared away our fundraisers. They would go in there and pull our financial reports about all kinds of dirty stories. And anybody who donated to us, we raised like $60,000, unheard of in a gubernatorial election. We spent about $50,000, unheard of. Everybody always says you need $1 million to run for governor. But I kept on that journey. The Lord kept providing, and I kept saying to myself, that's one of the lessons we're going to take away from this. That you don't need to be a millionaire to serve the people. You just need to have a heart for the people and to give back. And so we went through all of that, and then the election day came. The election day came, and the results came in. And I sat back and I looked at it, and I asked myself so many questions. I said, Lord, we did so much good work for the people. We literally saved this island. We kept people from losing their homes. To this very day, programs are running on the work that we did for you and for them. How is it that 9 out of 10 either didn't vote for us or didn't care to vote? And it created, for me, internally, a real crisis in public service. It made me really ask myself, how can I do this again? Yeah? How can I do this again and put everything into it and sacrifice my health and my family and go through all of that when nothing's going to be like that? They cheated! No, we're not going to go there. No, we're not going to go. Where we are going to go is that faith. You must always have it. No matter how small you feel, no matter how hard things are at the end of the day, that is when you can demonstrate your faith. So right now I say, thank you, Lord. Thank you. Thank you. prayed on this journey. I said, Lord, give us whatever we need to make this happen. And if it be not your will, then let me rest. Those are really my sincere prayers. So he's telling me to rest. And I really do need to rest for a little while. I need to bring my health back in order. I need to make up for so much lost time with my family. But between now and then, as we said, there is an election in November. Yes. And she made some very, very clear message to all of you. We didn't coordinate this, by the way. I just messaged her at the show, I messaged her at 5:45 and said, you go before me and just speak from the heart. I just did. And so this coming November, the people have a choice again. And this primary election taught everybody in this room and everybody who's going to be watching and reading, it taught us something that's so important. It taught us what happens when we poison our community with dirty politics. 60% of the people didn't even bother to vote. As much as they want to claim a resounding victory, they spent $1 million and 80% of the people still didn't vote for them. The message is very clear. We cannot allow our community to continue to be poisoned. We really cannot. And so part of that, we really need to hold on. We really need to hold on to the truth that as long as there are those of us who are willing to stand up for what's right, no matter how ugly, no matter how dirty, no matter what they may bring or what may come, as long as there are good people willing to stand and fight, then there will always be hope. Hope for all. Right. So they're asking us to concede. No. They're asking us to concede. No. They're asking us to concede. I'll be honest with you. I went and I saw my priest. I went to the convention square. I had all this inside me. I was hoping for some redemption and it didn't come. I had all this inside me and I'm having such a hard time reconciling all of it. And then it all became clear. It all became clear. If this is going to be a true journey of faith and service and unconditional love, then nothing can get in between that. Nothing can get in between that. And you must never, ever concede to that kind of people. Never concede. I'm going to make this an example for my children. I'm not going to tell them that after experiencing that and seeing that and knowing that is what's out there, that is what is out there, that you should go and bend your knee to that. And so, some people ask us to do a writing campaign. We and I are not going to do that. We're not going to do that. But we are not going to concede. Nobody concedes this. Let's get the people mobilized. Let's get the message out there. Let's put the energy back into this community with our own good hearts. Let's show that the faith that we have, no matter how diminished, will never be extinguished. That is the cause that has been given to us today. That is the cause we're fighting for. It's a fight God needs us to fight for. So let's bring this fight to the general election and go for it. I love you all. I love my family for everything they've sacrificed. I love our supporters. We drove down the island on primary election day and we saw you guys valiantly holding down your tents. Those of you that came and those of you that have been coming and putting yourselves in line, I know that phone calls are made and efforts are made to target people who show support anywhere else. Thank you for always being there. Thank you to my team. You guys are a really, really small team. Thank you guys. But most importantly, thank you to all of you guys that supported us. Thank you for helping me Thank you for believing in Green Eye. You know, we took on such a challenge, but it has a purpose. So let that purpose continue tonight, and let's bring that purpose all the way into the general election. Thank you all.
Following their speeches, Mr. Saniclas called to the stage and embraced Felix Camacho and Tony Ada, along with former First Lady Joanne Garcia Camacho. The emotional event left little doubt as to a political union being forged.
You guys watch that last game? I'll leave it at that. Thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Joanne and I, of course, with already made Senator Tony Ada. Ananda's not here. She is bringing their youngest daughter to college, so she's not here this evening. But Congressman, we're just here to say congratulations to the Saniclas and Tanani team for an outstanding election, a clean election, an honorable election. And finally, of course, to Sabrina Salas Matarani for an incredible career she's had in the media well over 2 decades, and all that she's done and contributed to our island. I know that when one door closes, another will come. There will be other blessings. And to Congressman Michael Saniclas, I don't think any congressman has accomplished more for the people of Guam than he has. A brilliant, gifted man that has given, with him and his family, their heart and soul in service to the people of Guam. And sir, we honor you and commend you and congratulate you. God bless you. Thank you.
Well, I know that everybody's going to want to eat something, but I just want to close by saying this. This is what politics on Guam is supposed to look like. This is what politics on Guam is supposed to look like. Let's make this politics on Guam real. The Lord Minister, by the way, I want to mention him and thank you for coming. God bless all of you. If we can please rise.
And in a statement released by the committee to re-elect Lou Leongero and Josh Tenorio, it says, we like some are also wondering about tonight's event hosted by the Saniclas Salas Matanani camp to thank their supporters. Following the alone time, they requested to process their next steps. Our understanding is that Camacho added supporters showed up at their appreciation party to pander for votes, said campaign manager Rory Respicio. Our hearts go out to those who experience an election loss in all races. We remain open to everyone. We all live on an island, and like Governor Lou and Lieutenant Governor Josh have stressed from the beginning, our family, friends, and neighbors are all welcome to be part of the Lou and Josh campaign to move our island forward where no one will be left behind. Election season ends and then begins again, and then end again. But the one thing that will remain constant under Governor Lou and Lieutenant Governor Josh's leadership is that when you need your government to be there for you for whatever reason, to provide services like health, education, public safety, or cash assistance related to pandemic recovery, your government under Lou and Josh's leadership will respond to you, no matter who you are or who you voted for in this election, he concluded. Let's move forward with Lou and Josh and retire the politics of the past.
Exciting news in the political world. Well, finally, today the parties in the Nicholas Moore trial come back to court to argue the defense's motion for mistrial, following the prosecution's failure to disclose key evidence in the case. If Judge Alberto Tolentino denies the motion, the jury is scheduled to be recalled at 1 p.m. for the continuation of trial and the continuation of a lengthy cross-examination of the prosecution's key witness, Eric Salone. The defense maintains that the Attorney General charged the wrong man with the shooting of Brian Mendiola in the leg the evening of October 15, 2020, and that Mr. Salone was the actual shooter. Now, when we come back, stick with us. We're going to have a big announcement from Attorney Peter Santos, who joins us in studio after these commercial messages. Please stick with us. Thank you all for sticking with us, and thank you for your comments during our Good Morning Marianas live show. Today we have a special treat, and I'm sure the comments will keep on coming. The beauty of our democracy is the options that we have when elections come around, and also the sort of flexibility that elections give us, especially in the general election. Today we have two candidates for Attorney General who made it past the primary election and onto the general election ballot. You have Attorney General Leven Camacho, the incumbent, and then you have Guam's first elected Attorney General, Doug Moylan, who is challenging him. And, you know, for all intents and purposes, people can argue that Attorney General Leven Camacho has been soft on crime. And people can also argue that Attorney General Doug Moylan might be too tough on crime, depending on what the criticisms are and who you talk to. And so is there room for options? And to talk about those options today, we have a special guest in studio, Attorney Peter Santos.
Half a day,
Mr.
Troy.
Santos, thank you so much for joining us again.
Thank you for
I
having me
appreciate
back.
it. You're always dressed so professionally.
Well, you know, normally I come in an island shirt, but today I'm in trial. I'm currently in trial, so I have to wear the suit.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate your time here, and I know you have a busy schedule, so talk to us, please, about why is it that you're here, and what are these options that the people of Guam have?
Well, first of all, let's talk about the primary, right?
Okay.
There were two contenders. So basically everyone knew they were going to go on. But the results of the primary is very interesting.
Okay.
Right? So last election,
I saw that the results were very close. There were a
Correct.
difference of 321 votes between the two, the closest election results that we had in the primary.
right. However, last election, it was pretty much a landslide, right? It was the same two folks.
Yes.
So it was pretty much a landslide last time. So what does the results this time say, right?
A greater dissatisfaction with Attorney General Leven Camacho,
Right.
right?
However, there's other aspects of that race that we need to look at and analyze. So there were over 1,000 non-votes. So that says there were a lot of people that
Interesting.
did not want to vote for either of these two
In
guys.
this past primary, there
Correct.
were 1,000 people who voted but did not vote in the Attorney General race.
So if you count all the votes cast, right, and you add up the votes that were cast for Attorney General, the delta or the difference is 1,009 votes,
Interesting.
not counting spoiled votes and write-ins.
So that is a large amount of people who just were not interested in voting in that race.
Correct. And so there were 28 spoiled ballots, which is kind of baffling to me because the ballot was very simple. It was nonpartisan. It was one-sided. There were just two names. How do you spoil that? Well, there's a couple of things. Maybe they wrote in somebody, but they didn't fill in the circle. You have to fill in the circle in order for that write-in to count. That's a very important thing.
Or maybe they voted for both of them.
Or they voted for both of them, or tried to change it and didn't erase it well enough. Or instead of circling, they made an X or a check mark. So that's how possible ways you can spoil it. But still, that's a low amount of spoiling. The thing that struck me was there were 127 write-ins. That, Troy, is more than all the other write-ins combined for all the other races.
So what you're saying is there's an indication from the primary election that there are a great number of people, and probably more, who are dissatisfied with the options that they have.
Right, because remember, that's just the primary. It's a low turnout. But still, that is a sense of where the general may end up going, right? So it could be a tight race. So a lot of folks have reached out to me and urged me to do something, and also kind of chastised me for not running in the primary when I picked up a packet, right? So let me explain. Ultimately, I did the soul searching, and I told you last time I was here that I love my life. You know, I do my job. I do my job well. I spend time with my children.
As a defense attorney, that's your job right now, just
Right.
so our audience understands. You're a former prosecutor, but because of issues that occurred during Leven Camacho's administration, you transferred over to the alternate public defender's office, and you've been a defense attorney for the past couple of years, right?
Going on 3.
Okay.
Okay. So other than that, that keeps me pretty busy, but I spend time with my almost 2-year-old and almost 4-year-old, right? I have animals that I take care of, my garden, just living a simple life, right? But a life of service. And so I didn't want to disrupt that. But like everything else in my life, Troy, I'm getting pushed. So let me explain that. I didn't even expect to graduate from high school because I was a troubled youth, right? So I did beat the odds. I graduated high school. Then I didn't even expect to go in the police department, but I got in. I was just looking for a job, to be honest with you.
Okay.
And GPD was the second agency that hired me. I was first hired by Navy PWC, Public Works Center, but then remember the big riff and everybody went off island?
Yes.
So I wasn't willing to go off island. So I went to GPD. So anyways, while there, I wasn't planning on going to college and getting my bachelor's degree, but, and I know she's watching, Bonnie Suba, who we all love.
I love Bonnie.
She was my supervisor at that time, and she pushed me to go get my bachelor's degree. And so, again, I wasn't looking for that. Got that, graduated top of the class, right, at UOG, and then something happened. My grandmother passed away, and she was the only anchor keeping me on Guam. So I came to a crossroads. I was offered the opportunity to go active duty military. And so since Grandma passed, I said, okay, I'm going to go off island, experience, training, education, and come back to Guam and serve again our people, right?
Okay.
At this point, my whole career is public service. And even to this day, my whole career has been public service. 30 years in public service, all right? So I go off, and after one tour, or after my first term is up, right? Supposed to be 4 years, but it ended up being a little bit more because of the stop, loss, stop, move. I was deployed to Iraqi freedom, enduring freedom, so on and so forth. So as soon as they lifted the stop, loss, stop, move, I dropped my paperwork to get out of the Army, come back home to Guam, go back to being a police officer or whatever, right? Because Guam was calling. My goal was always to come back home and serve. So my commander says, well, we're losing people a lot and we're trying to keep them. What can we do? So they offered me advanced, what was called ACS, advanced civil schooling, where I go to get my master's degree and in engineering, English, math, or whatever, and then go teach at West Point at the academy, right? I was like, New York? No, thank you, right? So they said, well, why don't you try for the funded legal education program, where they pay you for you to go to law school? So I applied, and by a miracle, I got in because there's over 2,000 applicants a year, and only 15 get selected. Not only that, once you get selected, you have to apply to law school, you have to pass the LSAT, all that, and if you don't, then you're yanked out of the program. So you have to have all the stars and planets aligned. So by a miracle, that happened, right? So my point in saying all of this is that I've always been pushed in the direction. I never planned any of this, Troy. I never planned to do this. I never planned to be a police officer. I never planned to be an Army officer. I never planned to be a lawyer. I don't plan to be AG. I never wanted to be AG. But there's that push again. So folks that I respect, mentors of mine who have been in the Guam legal profession for a long time, have spoken to me, have urged me to run as a write-in. And so I'm announcing today that I am going to run as a write-in in the general election for Attorney General of Guam.
Wow.
So there are people who I cannot name who are still in the Attorney General's office. And they have been contacting me constantly saying, Pete, we are so demoralized because you didn't run. Whether Levin wins or Doug wins, our lives are going to be horrible. So they're I don't know Doug personally. I've worked against him in a couple of cases while I was in prosecution. I've seen him in court. I've had conversations with him, and like I said, I never promised anything. I never expected anything, And all I know is what people are telling me, but I don't go by what people tell me, right? But there is enough people telling me that, there's some people telling me that he was a good guy, but there's enough people telling me that please, like I said when I was here last time, they were calling me saying, stop criticizing leaving because you're going to make Doug win. And that's worse.
Let me ask you, we at Kandit know because we've covered these stories about it's more than apprehension that prosecutors and former prosecutors have with Leavin Camacho. What is the apprehension that people in the Attorney General's office or those in the legal community have about Doug Moylan?
They actually tell me that the things that, and these are people who have been there for a very long time, and even some people who are not there, who were there under Moylan. These people are telling me that basically it's the same thing.
Okay.
That both of them will have a regime that does the same thing. So here's what I bring to the table, okay? Aside from my personal experiences of all the things I've done in my life in public service, right? I think, out of the three folks now that are going to be running for Attorney General, I think I bring the highest emotional IQ.
Okay.
All right? I have worked for good leaders and bad leaders. I have seen what good leadership looks like. I've seen what bad leadership looks like. I have been a leader myself. All right? And I told you, 30 years of public service. You know how many times in those 30 years, Troy, I have resigned?
Once.
Under Leavin Camacho. That's the only single time I've ever resigned. People don't leave jobs. People leave bad environments and poor leaders. Now, I've talked to some of the prosecutors who are still here on Guam who left and who have all said that they will come back in a heartbeat if I become Attorney General.
What is it that you offer to the people of Guam? And let's talk first about what seems to be the number one priority for people, and that is violent crime. What is it that you offer to the people of Guam if you become Attorney General in the way of criminal justice?
Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about my resume.
Okay.
That'll cover some of that.
Okay.
But here's the crux of the matter, Troy. All right? When you go to a football game, right? I like to use analogies. I think you've noticed that about me.
Yes.
When you
I'm
go,
going to try and follow this football analogy.
When you go to a football game, the coach cannot be the only person on the field to oppose the opposing team.
Okay.
You have to have players.
Okay.
All right? And so in order to play a fair game, you have to have good players, right? And so right now, what I bring to the table is the knowledge and understanding and the leadership skills to develop a strong team, right? No one can fight the 40-plus defense attorneys on Guam alone. You can't do it with 8 prosecutors and only 2 that can do serious trials, all right? There's 40-plus defense attorneys on Guam between the private bar, the public defender, and alternate public defender, right? You just can't fight a 40-plus team with a roster of only 8, 6 of which are brand new. Some of them have more time in service, but they're brand new to prosecution, right? So they've done other things, civil, family law, whatever, but they've never done prosecution. They've just started.
And they're new to battles with people like David Lujan and Jay Arreola.
Right.
And we've seen it in court.
Yes, you've seen it in court, right? It's like an NFL team playing a middle school junior varsity team, right? That's the difference. And so that problem has ripple effects across the criminal justice system, right? And I understand the criminal justice system because that was my undergraduate degree, right? Criminal justice. I'll talk about some of the experience I had in Afghanistan as a rule of law attorney, okay? So understanding what the judge's roles are, what the police's roles are, what parole, probation, corrections, you understand, and you got to work in collaboration with these people, these groups, these organizations. You cannot sit there and blame them because from where I sit, and I used to sit at prosecution, The judiciary, the probation folks, the parole folks, the correction folks, they're doing their job. They're meeting their mission. The cops, they're meeting their mission. Who's not meeting the mission? Prosecution. But prosecution is one of the biggest cogs in
Yes.
the gears, right?
Would you agree with what Lee Weber wrote in his opinion yesterday, where he talked about how Attorney General Levin Camacho in the debate that they had with Doug Moylan was blaming parts of the criminal justice system for the inefficiency in prosecution, where the Attorney General needs to pay attention to his prosecution team and allow the administration and the legislature to pay attention to the other elements of the criminal justice. For example, the crowding situation at the prison and the need for a new prison and the need for medical services over there, et cetera, et
I
cetera.
agree. That's not his lane, and that shouldn't be his concern, right? So on that point, I agree with Doug. Now,
Well, it was Lee Weber, actually. That was his
right,
opinion,
but
yeah.
Doug also mentioned that at the
Okay.
forum, right? That's that's not your concern, Mr. AG.
Yeah.
Right? That's really not your concern. But what's more disconcerting about that response that Levin had is that he's blaming
The judges.
the judges. And like I said in my opinion piece that I wrote, that you published, thank you very much, is that's like blaming your professor for giving you a failing grade.
when you're the one who was supposed to put in the work.
You're the one that was supposed to do the homework.
Yeah.
You're the one that was supposed to write the paper.
Yeah.
You're the one that's supposed to present it. So when the judge says D minus or F, don't blame the judge for your, we say this in the military, I don't know if I can get away with it, with your piss poor performance. Okay, that's okay.
That's Facebook
All right.
fine, yeah.
Facebook friendly. All right. So speaking of the military, if this was the military, if Levin was a commander in the military, he would have been relieved of command a long time ago for two reasons: failing the mission and creating a toxic environment. Okay? And that goes hand in hand. When you create that toxic environment, you will inevitably fail with the mission.
Let's talk about your resume and what it is that you bring to the table.
Okay.
Because you've just made this announcement that you're running for Attorney General as a write-in. I'm sure you're going to have to go through all the motions with the Guam Election Commission as to the variations of your name that people would be able to write in. Your name is easy enough to spell for people, I think, Peter Santos. Now, tell our audience about yourself and what qualifies you to be Attorney General.
Okay, like I said, my name is Pete Santos. I'm 48 years old, 48 years young, with 30 years of public service, both local and military.
You fit into an age demographic that is the largest voting bloc on the island, the 45 to 55-year-old voting age bloc.
Yes, and also the veterans, don't forget.
Yes.
Right. I have 7 children. I was born
You have 7 kids? I didn't know that.
Yeah, it doesn't show, right? But 7 children. You know, I am Chamorro because that's proof right there, right, that I'm Chamorro. I'm from Get. So I served 8 years in the Guam Police Department. I left as a police officer 3. I was in patrol. I was at CIS, which is Criminal Investigation Section, and I was in the Highway Patrol Division as well. All right. I was the valedictorian of the police cycle. Then I told you I graduated from the University of Guam with a degree in criminal justice. I graduated with the highest GPA of my graduating class. Dr. McNinch knows this. He was my advisor at the time. I went to the University of Washington School of Law, the JAG Basic course in the Army, the JAG Advanced course in the Army. I have 4 combat deployments. I've been awarded the Bronze Star Medal, the NATO Medal, the Expeditionary Medal for Operation Enduring Freedom, Operation Iraqi Freedom. In my military career, I've been a military magistrate, a hearing officer, and not all of that was spent active duty. I was National Guard before I went active duty, Guam National Guard. A lot of my peers at the time are all the leaders now in the National Guard, like Colonel David Santos, right? He was my upperclassman by 1 year at the Guam ROTC. So anyways, after I got out of active duty and came back to Guam, I went into the reserves where I served as the Regional Defense Counsel for Hawaii, Guam, CNMI, and Alaska. And of course, I was a local prosecutor, like I said. I was an adjunct. I always screw the
We all have our
pronunciation.
words.
Yeah.
I can't say my own name correctly.
Adjunct instructor for criminal justice with Central Texas College. And I've been a local defense attorney. I was also a defense attorney in active duty as well. And I'm fluent in Chamorro. And I will ask some time later to speak in Chamorro
absolutely.
to address our
I love the vernacular.
Right. Okay. And so, Zach, can we look at some of those photos and I can explain what they are? All right. So that's me when I was in the police academy. You
That's
can
your
hardly
grandma?
recognize me. Yeah, and that's my dear grandmother, Regina Ariola Espinosa Santos.
Well, you were a cop a long time ago. That's an old uniform.
That's 1993.
Okay, yeah, they haven't used those uniforms in a very long time.
Right, right. Next slide. Next photo, please. So that's me at Old Pedro's Plaza, Central
the-
Precinct at the time.
Is that the basement?
No, that's the right when you walk in. That's the desk watch. What's right, even if it's the hardest thing to do, and even if no one's looking, right? So these two women mentored me and instilled in me that accountability and transparency and truth and integrity is everything.
Captain Bonnie Suba, definitely a woman of integrity.
Oh yes, and both of them
I don't know Emily Charfris
very
well.
very devout Catholics.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Very spiritual people. Next photo, please. That's us graduating from the police academy. That's Jesse Rodriguez there, Craig Chong in the back. Next. That's me on my motorcycle.
Do they still have motorcycles like that?
No, not those. Okay, this photo.
Is that Bert?
Who? No, the guy with no
hat?
That's me.
Oh, okay. Well, you guys look alike.
Yeah. Well, this is a remote district center in the province of Ghazni
In Afghanistan?
in Afghanistan.
Okay.
And we went to meet with the locals out there. And there were 25 people at that district center. And 2 hours after we left, they call it engagements, right? We go in there and we meet with them. We discuss the issues. We discuss projects. So 2 hours after we left Troy, no one was alive.
Wow.
That was deep in the heart of Taliban territory. So they were watching us. As soon as we left, they went in and killed everybody. So, you know, it's photos like these that remind me about how precious and how lucky we are, how precious life is and how lucky we are to live in America, the greatest country in the world. All right, next slide. This is a different district center. You notice the building in the back is empty because nobody wants to, the Taliban controlled area, nobody wants to
Be inside
be
a
inside
building.
of it. Yeah, you make yourself, you paint a big target on your back. The guy in the back there, he just happened to be passing by and wanted to be in the picture to his peril. This is the president of the defense bar for the local attorneys in that province. The female there is a Department of State attorney who was part of our legal team.
Okay.
All right. Yeah. So I was a rule of law attorney over
That's
there.
my brother Brian's first cousin, Darren.
Yes,
Yeah.
Darren Castro, and Troy Napolti, I'm sorry, and David Santos, Colonel Dave Santos, and then in the back there is James Cruz from Malesu. But anyways, my mission over there, Troy, was to help them develop the 3 C's: cops, courts, and corrections. But that also encompassed the prosecutor and the defense bar. And so that's what we were doing. We were helping them stand up and design their criminal justice system.
Okay.
And that's why I bring to the table a strong and deep knowledge of how criminal justice systems, not only in the U.S., but in other parts of the world, work. Because in order to do this, we had to study the comparative law between us and other countries, right?
Okay.
Muslim countries, Asian countries, European countries. So anyways, next. Whenever I was there, I always tracked down all our Guam Guard folks. I wasn't in the Guam Guard at this time. I was actually stationed in Germany, but I was there, and whenever the Guam Guard came through, I always made it a point to track them down and get together and host them for a meal.
Okay.
All right. This is my son, Tristan. He is now a staff sergeant in the U.S. Air Force.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah. And so he's the only one of my 7 children that went into the military, but he keeps the military tradition alive.
Do you tease him about being in the Air Force?
Actually, I tell him I'm jealous because they have such a much better life than us, right? What's the difference between a marine biologist and an Air Force biologist?
What?
The marine biologist is not as smart. All right. So there again is Darren and James. James was the officer in charge of the Criminal Investigation Division over there, and he had a secret mission to go on, and he didn't have enough people, so he asked Darren and myself to accompany him in this mission. So we went, and we weren't supposed to wear uniform to an extent. So we went. Followed him on several of those missions.
This is in Afghanistan?
This is in Afghanistan, okay. Yeah. So these are how our convoys look. We roll with about 60 to 80 vehicles, heavily armored, heavily fortified with big guns. That's my Polish counterpart. He's also an attorney, a Polish attorney. And what we did is we went out, like I said, we went out to these district areas, courts, corrections, so on and so forth, to help them establish their criminal justice system. Next slide. That's me meeting with some of the prosecutors, and the guy in the blue uniform there, that's the prison warden.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. I think
This is to establish a criminal justice system in Afghanistan as the United States was helping to turn things over. Is that correct?
correct, nation
Okay.
building. So that was our slice of the mission. If I remember correctly, this was Betsy.
I hope Betsy's still around.
Yeah.
Because I see Betsy's relatives to the side.
Yeah. There again is the prison warden. He gave me a prayer bead. You can see in my hands there.
Okay.
They were very grateful. So here's the thing about their prison, right? It was mostly filled with drug addicts.
Okay.
But one of the things that there were some terrorists there, but it was mostly filled with drug addicts, and the problem they had is that in their area there were a bunch of different ethnic groups, and so they had a big problem trying to keep the peace and segregate them. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah, yeah. But my question is, in the middle of war, why was it so important for them to be jailing drug addicts?
Well, life goes on. You still have to run your government and run your population.
Okay.
Right? And so we were funding them in part to build areas to house the terrorists, but the majority of their people in their facility were drug users.
I see.
Yeah. And this was the chief prosecutor. And then again, more of the Chamorros coming through. These are Marines on either side of us. Preparation to go out on missions. We went on 2 to 3 missions a week. This guy's funny. Look at his hat. It's the Confederate flag. But he was also killed.
Oh,
So
I'm
that's
sorry.
why And then, like I said, whenever the folks come through, we get together. Next slide. Always got to show Guam pride, right? No matter where you're at.
I think you just wanted to show off being on that plane.
Well, yeah. Yes, it is.
An A10?
Yeah,
I
Warthog.
have no idea what
Yeah.
that is.
It's the killer.
Exactly what it
When you
was.
call for backup, they're the guys. That's the cavalry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, they're the ones that come and
Clear the field?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So this is a special picture. That's Brigadier General Tracy Artero Lujan Smith,
Okay.
the first female Chamorro general officer.
Oh, wow.
She was the deputy commander at 807th Medical Command. She was under a 2-star general. I was the staff judge advocate for the 2-star, but I spent a lot of time with her. She mentored me. She just, my God, just being in her presence was just such an amazing treat and very helpful for my professional development.
And she no longer lives on Guam?
No, she's been living in Florida for the longest time.
Okay.
That's where she lives. But I think now she's the commander, because this picture was back in, I think, 2017.
Okay.
Yeah, so I think she rose to become the commander.
Okay.
Yeah. This was a veterans celebration at the AG's office when I was there. Therese Terlahi came by to help honor the veterans. Remember I told you that was one of the things that never happened when
Yes.
when Levin went there. So it just breaking all the morale of the people, right?
Yeah.
That's Judge Barrett Anderson in the back there. You know, she always made it a point, right?
It's Julian Uggan.
Julian Uggan, my pari. We have a lot of we had a lot of morale things and get-togethers under Elizabeth Barrett Anderson. I hosted several of them at my house.
There's Chief Prosecutor
Chief
Basil Allen.
Prosecutor. This is my backyard in
Okay.
Agate. Joe
Oh, there's
McDonald.
Joe McDonald.
Yeah, Bryson Brazil. But we had several events where I hosted the back at my place.
Joe McDonald actually has very nice things to say about you.
Oh,
Yeah,
I hope so.
Yeah. Back when we were battling it out, I had a meeting with him about something, and he goes, "Hey, go easy on my boy Peter Santos." And of course, I had some words for him about that.
Yeah.
But he had some very nice things to say about you.
Well,
The former chief prosecutor of the Attorney General's office, Joe McDonald.
I will have to buy him a beer for that.
Yeah.
Okay. And so one of the other things I tried to do when I was up there, every section or every organization has a motto, right? And so I tried to push, but I got pushed back. And I did make a plaque and give it and leave it there, which is still there at the AG's office, and they still use it. But SPIRIT, SPIRIT, and it stands for service, professionalism, integrity, respect, impartiality, and truth. And so if we just have that somewhere to continuously remind us, right, and can develop that as an ethos, then that helps develop morale, right? So anyways, what I think the problem is, no, not what I think, what I know the problem is, Troy, with the prosecution division. And yes, prosecution division is just one part of the whole Attorney General's office.
But would you agree it's the most important part?
They're all important, but yes.
Okay.
It is. I'm not trying to lessen the importance of any of the other parts. So a leader faces reality, Troy. A leader looks and assesses the situation, and then he rallies his troops. He or she rallies his troops to perform the mission. When people believe in their leaders and when people want to be there, they will go above and beyond without being asked, right? When you have a poor leader with toxic environment, people run away, and they do not want to give not just what's above and beyond, they don't even want to give what they're supposed to give.
What will make you different as an Attorney General from Levin Camacho or Doug Moylan?
Okay, so I understand what the role of the Attorney General of Guam is, which, like I said, that's not really what I wanted to aspire to be, right? But I understand it, all right? You are the chief legal officer of the island. You represent the government of Guam, but at the same time, your prosecution division prosecutes crimes, right? So there's a slight conflict in that, right? that could possibly occur, right? But there are so many other functions under that office, right? There's child support, there's the solicitors, right? And then you have to represent the agencies. So all of those missions have to all be done right and done well. And you have to understand your role as the leader and the manager of this big, huge organization. And you don't get into the weeds, but you make sure you understand what's going on. And that's what I see the failure is two things. He doesn't have a firm grasp or assessment
You mean
leaving
Camacho?
Of the reality on the ground. And even if he did, he doesn't know how to do it, right? You're looking at something, how to fix it. You're looking at something, but you don't know what you're looking at, right? So you surround yourself with people who do. So then that's the second problem. He's surrounded himself people who like him, don't know what they're looking at. And also, by the way, are the ones with agendas that are playing with people's lives and create that toxic environment. So you have this group of people, this clique, that don't have the experience that is needed, either the training, the education, or the experience needed to lead an organization like this. And also they're treating it as their little fiefdom, their little kingdom.
What would make you different from Doug Moylan as Attorney General?
Doug and I share a lot of the same perspective and positions on issues, right?
Okay.
I'm a fiscal conservative, all right? We have a difference of legal opinion on certain things, but
And a difference in leadership style, I'm guessing.
and a difference in leadership style.
Okay,
Yes.
fair enough. Now, how are you going to... No one's won a write-in campaign in a general election since Paul Calvo in 1974. People have tried, but it's very difficult to do. The Election Commission, or the legislature, recently made it a little more tenable when it allowed for variations in names
Right.
for write-in. How are you going to overcome the challenge that is a write-in campaign so that you do receive the plurality of the votes?
Right, that's important. We didn't really discuss that. There doesn't need to be a majority. It just needs to be a plurality. The statute says the person that gets the most votes.
Yes.
So the difference between that phraseology or terminology and majority has been
50%
50%
plus
plus one, right, of votes cast.
So how are you
right?
going to overcome the challenges that you face?
Well, I don't step into things that I haven't thought about. Even though, like I said, Troy, everything I've done, people have pushed me, right, to do. And the urge and the calling is so strong that I decided to go against my initial decision to run and to go ahead, because I've looked at the situation and what we talked about in the beginning with the dissatisfaction of both candidates, right? That sets the conditions. So, of course, how do you win elections? I'm not a politician, but I talk to people who are, and they've given me what I believe is sound advice, right? And yourself included, you just have to get that exposure out there. You have to pass the word, right? You have to put the signs up. You have to go to be
Okay.
seen,
Okay.
right? You have to campaign.
Are you going to be, because you were definitely vocal in the primary election, and you wanted to talk about, you wanted people to know the claims that you were making against Michael Nicholas, which was fine. He's no longer in the election. I've seen you become a little vocal in this general election, more toward Lulian Guerrero than Felix Camacho. But now as you enter as a candidate, are you going to be able to go to both? I see. So you're going to be able to go to both of their camps and ask for their voters, ask for their support. Go to both
yeah.
their pocket meetings.
Right.
And their,
So from what I understand with the pocket meetings, the AG candidates can appear, but they're never given the microphone.
oh, that's interesting.
Yeah,
Okay.
because the AG candidates are nonpartisan, right?
In the Calvo, in the Republican side, at least when I was a part of elections, AG candidates actually were welcome to the stage to
Oh,
speak. They
I
just
see.
couldn't say that they were for
or
any
against
certain candidate. Yeah.
All right. So
Because it's nonpartisan.
right. I wasn't on island when all that occurred, but from the couple of pocket meetings that I've attended for the primary, I've seen leaving there, and I asked how come he didn't go and talk, and they said they don't let the AG candidates speak. They'll recognize them. They'll say, "Ladies and gentlemen, so and so is here."
Maybe it's just the preference of that whatever campaign that was.
Could be,
Yeah.
could be, but
But I believe, at least I, in my recollection of how Republicans do it, they do allow the AG. I remember Alicia Limsiaco and...
yeah. See, I wasn't here for any of those.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So I don't know. And like I said, I've told you before, I'm apolitical. I speak on issues, right? I don't endorse any candidate. I still have never endorsed any candidate for any office, right? Whether it's congressperson, governor, senator, nothing. Because I reserve that. I don't want to have to defend them later,
Sure.
right? So I'm not going to put myself out in front of them. But I will criticize things I see or believe are wrong. And that's my whole whistleblower ethos, right? That's the moral imperative. See something, say something, right? Don't be quiet about it. So I know we've gone pretty long. So let me go ahead and, if you don't mind, I'll look in the
Yes,
camera and
please speak directly to
address
our
our,
audience right
our,
there.
our
Yes.
Chamorro audience.
Please do, please do.
Okay. Mananahud and Manyeluhu gwal si Peter Santos tau hagat zo. Hugagagaw I konsiderasyon midzo para este mamala na general election. Prombota zo pontugi na ano era write-in candidate para Attorney General of Guam. Haji zo na tau-tau, mafanyagun Guamo, mapoksay Guam zo, haga sa husetbi I tau-tau Guam, manyet biyo lokwi gimilitat, veterano zo. 30 años esta, desde o setbi, ututun sumetbi I tau-tau Guam, zan I tau-tau Amerika. Megay linieho, megay experience ko. Antaw zo na tau-tau. Jau gagagaw, inangokun midzo. Jangin, timan satisfetsu hamzo, ni hafa malolofan gini gitanota. Todo I problema. Piot, put bandan kriminat. Jangin man lalalu hamzo sta. Sa pudi situasyon, nita susesedi gini gitanota. Inilia, man maad na todo I tau-tau. Ti debi na. Estegi, Paraguay ano atan, megay niya na tau-tau ginigit sa Guam, man maulikit na tau-tau. Lo, guaha menos, di siya na tau-tau. Man masosot ta, ja siya dumispoponi, hita ni man maulik. Tidiebi na, tidiebi na po masedi na. Imatatatsong pago na Attorney General si Leven Camacho, hapupuni na gua problema. Sa hafa na hapupuni na gua problema. Paraguay, ti mabababay mata niya. Ti abababay ti tanos niya. Ja, ti presiso gwi. Put STI problemata siya ni ta sesedi gibandan kriminat. Gini gitanota. Man maad niya hit. Maad niya ju pudi familya ko. Maad niya ju pudi famagonno. Maad niya ju put todoy man gatsongo. Haji pago ang kada mata ju an ogan. Ubaba I papit gazeta. Haji talu pago. Haji talu pago. Poma anya. Haji talu poma sa kengwan. Estigi I problema nita susesedi pago na tempo. Ja imuna tagini na binaba. Esti na problema. Sa pudi mamaygo si Leven Camacho. Matsum matanya. Tanisita tau-tau pro fatatsung genaw gienaw na tatsung ni kapas ja ni preciso ni pro maulik todo I problema ni ta susesedi ni ja tiwatsaki I tau-tau na gisang papa sa giza responsably na pero na siguro na machotsogwi tsetsunia ja pro na isya lokwi todo man necesita pero matsogwi tsetsunia lo ai ti chotsogwi na Mucho mas hadudulak todo itaw-taw ni man malago po fanyet bi giedzu na istaw law hadulak todo. Pues saput enaw nagaygit gini na istaw. Put enaw nagaygit gini na insisesedi todo sti siya na problema. Guaw si Pete Santos, guaw taw-taw Guam, mapoksay jo gini, hugay za itaw-taw Guam, hugay za itinota, utungo, hafa, nisita tatsogwi, para tafa maulik isti, madzulang i-prosecution division. Angok ko, na kapas jo, za utungo hafa, tanisita tatsogwi, para tafa maulik isti na problema. Timamay godzo, mabababay mataho, kung todo ititanoso. Pues, angin man lalalo amzo, angin man osun amzo, considera jo, por favor. Tugi na ano, feeling i-circle na siguro na todo dos unsogwi. Pete Santos o sino Peter Santos, gesti mamala na general election, by Attorney General, tugi na ano, feeling i-circle, ja pega jo na fatatung jo gedzo na oficina ja be fa maulik todo be na gas todo kutsinadas. Si Jus Masi.
Attorney Santos, thank you so much for the vernacular, and thank you so much for making your announcement here on Kandit. We'll get the news out also on our website and on a story on Facebook. I very much appreciate your time with our audience.
I appreciate you more, Troy.
Thank you, and good luck in the election. All right, thank you so much for joining us on Candid News for Good Morning Marianas. Now we ask that you join us in turning our attention to Cousin Ray Gibson's The Point, The Ray Gibson Show on 93.3 FM The Point, the only morning talk show of any significance or consequence in Guam, every weekday from Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. And again, on Bob Klitsky's Tall Tales this afternoon from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. I'm wearing his shirt. I'm a member of the Blue Star Club. The Ray Gibson Show happening now. Turn our attention on Facebook Live at the Point Guam and also on YouTube Live. The Ray Gibson Show. For Candid News, I'm Troy Torres. Good morning, Marianas.
The Jones Act is a 1920 law justified on national security grounds as a means to bolster the U.S. maritime industry. It restricts domestic shipping to vessels that are U.S. built, U.S. owned, U.S. flagged, and U.S. crewed. However, this law boosts cost by banning foreigners from competing and forcing Americans to purchase ships that are up to 8 times more expensive than those built in other countries. The result is higher transportation costs. Shipping oil from Texas to the Northeast, for example, costs 3 times more than importing oil from Africa. Ultimately, consumers foot the bill. In addition, higher shipping costs push freight from ships onto other sources of transportation, such as trucks, which means more traffic and pollution. Meanwhile, this blatant protectionism has failed to benefit builders of ships in the U.S., whose production is less than 1% of those in China.